Today's video we are doing a full review of a designer fragrance. This is Valentino Born in Roma Intense. Valentino reached out to me through email and wanted to send me some of their newer fragrances for men, and I used to own a Valentino fragrance, Valentino Uomo, the original one, which smells like kind of chocolatey hazelnut. I used to own it and wear it, and it was a very nice fragrance. So I know that I have that Valentino can make things that I do like. So I thought I'd give these ones a shot and see how they go. The note breakdown for this is very simple. It's got lavender, vanilla, and vetiver. The bottle is kind of transparent at the bottom, and you can kind of see this kind of pinky hue at the bottom, which is quite a cool look, I think. It's just a little bit transparent, and the juice, like I say, is kind of a pinky colour, but it looks quite nice. Doesn't really show up well on the video here. You can see it a lot better actually in person. But the bottle's cool. I like the bottle. The spray on these is quite good, and I get something in the opening that does remind me somewhat of a men's shower gel. However, it's got these other things going on which stops it smelling like a blue fragrance, like an out of the shower fragrance. It's got this warm envelope of sweetness to it, and it's got this kind of almost slightly spicy quality, like the lavender's slightly spiced. So you get this kind of lavender aromatic but warm and sweet envelope. There's something in there, or the vibe of it at least, gives me a little bit of a kind of a masculine shower gel kind of vibe in the initial top notes. After it kind of settles on the skin after kind of 20 minutes, half an hour, I think the shower gel vibe kind of goes away, and I get more of this kind of warm, sweet, rich kind of vibe, which is quite pleasant. It's kind of slightly vanilla-y, but also the texture is a little bit kind of rubbery almost, or maybe bubble gummy rubbery, kind of an interesting texture. So it's not quite vanilla, it's almost like a kind of a bubble gum vanilla almost, or like a rubbery kind of vanilla. It's not a straightforward vanilla, it's got some other kind of twang to it. The texture is very smooth, very kind of, like I say, rubbery is a good word. And as it kind of dries down, I get this kind of a, like I say, warm, sweet, vanillic, mixed with this kind of modern, what I would say is a woody amber base, with very, very light touches of a very clean kind of vetiver, a fresh, clean vetiver, woody ambers, sweetened with this kind of vanillic, kind of very smooth, rubbery vanillic touch. There isn't much development or change to the fragrance apart from it getting a little sweeter and warmer as it dries down. In terms of performance for this one, a solid 8 to 9 hours in longevity with a reasonable projection. I would deem this as a spring, autumn, winter fragrance. I personally probably wouldn't wear it in the summer, but certainly the cooler weather would be great. I think the sweet element of it would work on occasions like going out on a date, but also you could probably pull it off slightly more dressed up. I don't think you would want to wear this in a suit, but if you were just a little bit more dressed up than just, casual, it can be pulled off that way. And in general, I see it more as a casual evening fragrance. There's something as it dries down that's maybe a little bit darker. It kind of reminds me a little bit of the label, almost like there's a slight kind of leathery nuance to it. Leather isn't listed as a note, but there is something along those lines when you smell it from kind of the midsection that you can imagine it a little bit like that kind of faux leather kind of vibe. Even like I say, leather isn't in there, so, but that you kind of, maybe it's just the texture that I'm getting from this, but I can imagine it. So, you get this kind of very sweet, warm, vanilla-y kind of woody amber thing, maybe with nuances of a very smooth leather-like note. I was also sent Born in Roma Extradose, so I have one of each, the Intense and the Extradose. I'll give you a kind of a side-by-side comparison. Basically, the Intense has this more sweeter, vanilla, richer, warmer kind of tone to it, with a slight blue out of the shower fresh top note. Whereas the Extradose lacks that kind of warm vanillic sweetness, but they are very similar. You get a similar DNA, a similar vibe as you might expect. They're, flankers of each other, I guess. But this one is a little bit more, slightly more, I guess, darker, woodier, spicier, just a slightly different direction. Again, lacking that kind of vanilla, warm kind of sweetness that the Intense has. They're definitely a very similar DNA. It just depends, kind of which vibe you prefer, I guess. The Extradose seemed to have a little bit of a longer longevity. It lasted a little bit longer on my skin than the Intense does. I had my sister smell both of these and she preferred the Intense. She liked the Intense just a little bit more than the Extradose. The Extradose, she made a comment that to her nose it smelled a little bit more herbal, kind of more green.
I have to say, I love the bottle. It smells very masculine. It's quite musky, woody. This is quite a heavy, more autumn winter smell, I'd say. I do really like it, actually. I wouldn't be afraid to wear that myself either, even though it is quite masculine. Okay, so a very similar one. I think the first one I smelled was a bit warmer. This one is slightly more herby, slightly more herbal. I was just remembering Old Spice, and this kind of reminds me more of that. It's got like a cypress or cedar smell to it, to me.
Personally, I think if you're kind of in your 20s to early 30s, this might be a good fit. I don't see this on a guy over the age of 35, personally. However, when my sister smelled it, she associated the smell with an older guy, sort of 40s and above, which is interesting. So our perceptions are totally different. She thought this was dark and heavy and smelled more like a grown, mature man. Whereas when I smell it, I get something a little bit more youthful, and I can imagine 20-year-olds, early 30s pulling this off, more so than, the older generation. Which just tells me that it's really kind of versatile. I mean, it's that opinion is very subjective. Clearly, my sister has a completely opposite opinion of me on that. So I think it's clearly, wear it if you like it. Essentially, that's just a vibe that I get from it. It does have kind of a compliment vibe to it. Like, generally, people are going to find this pleasant. Like, the masses of the world, if you smell like this, are going to think you smell good. So if you want something kind of easy to wear that you don't really have to think too much about, and generally people around you are going to think you smell good for the most part, then fragrances like this are absolutely solid. Like there's they're good for what they do that way. Altogether, with both of these, I genuinely didn't mind either of them. I wore them both fine and actually thought that they smelled completely fine. I wouldn't have gone out and bought them myself, to be fully transparent. However, like, wearing them, I had no problem. I thought that the wafts that I got around myself out and about walking were quite pleasant. I think this one has a nice balance of the sweetness. It's warm, it's kind of inviting, it's quite pleasant, and this one is just a little bit darker and again lacks the sweetness, but kind of makes it a little bit more grown up and a little bit more mature. And I can imagine a slightly more older guy pulling this one off better than, say, this one, again, because of the sweetness makes me associate it with being a little bit younger. I do like the bottles. I think they're one of the better looking designer bottles. The only thing I'm not too keen on is the spiky color. I think it was better when the original one had a smooth, it was a kind of a gold color rather than this kind of spiky plastic thing, which I personally am not a fan of. But the actual bottle itself is cool. I can't quite decide if I have a favourite between these two. I kind of like the sweetness in this. And again, this is basically very, very similar, except it doesn't have the sweetness. But I kind of like that aspect of it as well, that it's not sweet and it has more of a dry kind of vibe to it. So I think they're equally as good. If you want something a little bit sweeter, go for the intense version. If you want something that doesn't have that sweetness, go for the extra dose, basically. That's my thoughts on both the Born in Roma Intense and Born in Roma Extra Dose. But I hope you enjoyed the video, and maybe you found it useful if you were contemplating these and you wanted a vibe between each of them. I'll see you again with another video. Take care, everyone. Have a good day. Goodbye.
Old man Harlem gives me Sunday headache, but that old man Harlem keeps me rolling on.